Hi, and welcome back to Animal Liberation TV. So, Happy New Year to everyone that's been following my channel, or if you're new, welcome. I don't know if you can say Happy New Year about 2021 without being ironic. There you go. So, I think Happy New Year in the sense that this year, 2021, has to be a fundamental year for animal liberation. Um, it has to be a fundamental year for animal liberation. We have to see some progress this year. There has to be some fundamental changes. I really believe that this year. And the good thing is that I think the signs are that it will happen this year. I think there's a lot of good signs of things are changing. People want change. It's not happening fast enough. So that brings me on to my first point, which is if you've seen the video Oath 2021. It's like a 5-minute video that I uploaded a week ago or something. It's basically just us, me encouraging myself and potentially anyone watching, just to do that bit more towards the struggle for animal liberation, so we actually see some tangible changes this year. Changes that we can say, when we look back on 2021, look at what we achieved. Beyond just an increase in theory of vegans in the world. So one of the first things I wanted to do was, I suppose, another kind of slight disclaimer thing, along with the idea of glamorization. So in Oath 2021, in which the video I'm encouraging people to do a bit more for animal liberation, I'm not inciting people to do anything illegal by putting illegal things to music in a film like I do a lot on this channel. I have to make that clear. I'm not inciting anyone to do anything. Half of this channel is an artistic creative output for me, so I consider it an art project as much as anything else. So especially when I produce some of the music myself and put it with images. So when I put a video together, the idea is it's meant to be kind of exciting, and one of the things I don't want it to be is glamorizing direct action. That's not the aim. It might seem like that if there's some really pounding drum and bass behind a load of animal liberation front actions. It might kind of seem a little bit like I'm inciting things or encouraging them or trying to glamorize the direct action side of things. I'm not. What I'm trying to do is create some exciting imagery, whether it's arson or raids or criminal damage or whatever, kind of exciting, unusual imagery, the history of the movement, with some kind of adrenaline pumping music, yes. And the idea is to make it exciting, but not to glamorize it. You know, in reality, there's not that much that's glamorous about direct action. Most of it is driving. There's a lot of waiting around. You know, adrenaline, fear sometimes, depending how serious it is. So, and you know, there's a risk of losing your freedom. There's nothing glamorous about any of those things. Okay, so yeah, the videos are done for artistic, exciting reasons to kind of get your emotions going, and they're not to encourage you to actually replicate those things and do illegal stuff yourself. Okay. Something else I wanted to address was something that I feel, looking around, is there's something missing from the movement, which is anger. You know, of course, anger is a negative emotion. I'm not claiming that anger is a way of living. You know, it's unhealthy. Anger is only something that comes out of, in the animal liberation movement, a sense of injustice. You know, how dare you do these things to these creatures for money or for pleasure, or for career status. You know, that it's anger is comes out of the sadness and the despair, and I do think that one of the things that seems to be missing from the modern animal rights movement or the vegan movement, the internet vegan movement, you might call it, where's the anger? You know, when I was young, we were kind of passionate and like, we're going to change this and we're going to change it now. We're going to change it in our lifetimes. And I do believe that a certain amount of anger is actually natural, useful, and productive when it comes to animal liberation. Okay, And I think one of the things that that serves is it gives you a sense of purpose and urgency. Okay, and I think those are two things that are missing from the movement at the moment: anger and urgency. Okay, now 2021 is actually a landmark year for the animal liberation movement, and that is because it marks on the 9th of February 2021 this year, in a few weeks, 9th of Feb, will mark the murder of hunt saboteur Mike Hill in 1991. 30 years it will be. So this is a very important landmark year for the movement in terms of that. And on November the 5th of this year, now 2021, will mark 20 years since Barry Horn died in prison on hunger strike against animal experiments in the UK. So those, to me personally, are very, very important dates. 30 years for Mike and 20 years for Barry. But they're incredibly important for the movement. And you can see podcasts 2 and 3 if you want to see about Mike Hill and Barry Horn in those. Okay? So, I think this year is going to be tricky because we've got all the lockdowns, we've got COVID laws, and on top of that, the UK government is talking about banning all protests next year. So these things are going to make it very, very tricky, but definitely don't mean that anything is impossible. And whilst I am not encouraging people to break any laws, if laws are brought in to stop protest altogether, then it means that people have to break laws to express free will. And that's part of democracy. Not that I'm into democracy, I'm an anarchist, but you know, so as an anarchist, all laws are irrelevant anyway. We shouldn't be listening to the laws. I mean, the animals need help, you know, and if they bring in further laws to stop that, well, I'm not encouraging it, but I think it was JFK Kennedy that said something like, if you make peaceful protests impossible, you make violent revolution inevitable, something like that. So if people this year are going to go and try and carry out civil disobedience, which I've always encouraged, because there's nothing illegal about civil disobedience. You know, it should be encouraged within society that people bend the level that laws are placed at in terms of putting their bodies in the way of production lines of animals being killed, etc. Civil disobedience is an important part of democracy and anarchy, both of them. So, you know, what can you say? If they bring in more laws, we can't let it stop us. We can't, because the animals need our help. But I'm not encouraging people to break the law by saying that. I'm just saying that if they bring in new laws, then we have to test them. That's for sure. And so I think there's two words that really sum up this 2021, and that is occupy and blockade. That's what we need to do. And quite frankly, there's a lot of vegans out there at the moment who say vegan FTA for the animals. Okay, we just need to try and get those people off their so-called internet activism pedestals and out into the real world. And I think the kind of occupy and blockade mentality, civil disobedience, lawful way of expressing yourself in protest. What was I saying about that there? Oh yeah, so the main point of doing civil disobedience is taking your body and taking it to the animal abusers and using your presence, your physical presence, to blockade or occupy and stop animal abuse going on. And that is kind of the number one rule really to all campaigning, even outreach, civil disobedience, direct action. Your body has to be taken somewhere doing something. That's how an animal liberation will actually take place and start happening, is if we put our bodies there where the animal abuse is. Okay? Another thing for 2021, I'm finding it hard to breathe in this. It's a new top I've got. Is we need three things as a movement. We need money, so we need to start thinking of ways of fundraising. We need organisers who are going to organise campaigns And 3, we need activists. And by that, I don't necessarily mean, or don't mean ALF activists. For example, I mean activists, people that are going to go out and do the civil disobedience and blockade and occupy. Okay? So, basically, yeah, that's my message, is that if we're going to take Oath 2021, that we're going to actually hope to make a difference to the animals this year. Let's face it, what's going on is, sometimes I sit back, because I try and take a lot of mental breaks from thinking about animal abuse and animal liberation, because I know what it can do to you, because I've been burnt out many years ago myself. So, but then when I take a break and then I come back to it and do some video editing, whatever, it's like, is this really going on? Is this stuff actually, how do people do this? How is it going on? How is it supported and protected and funded by the government and protected by the police? Why? How? I find it bemusing and obviously distressing, depressing and stressful, thinking that we live in a world where speciesism is just everywhere, and in the actual practice of these factory farms and the slaughterhouses and the fur farms and the laboratories and the breeders and all these other places that are abusing animals for profit or fun. How is this going on? What's wrong? So we've got a big challenge ahead. We're still a very, very young movement. Much as I want to see animal liberation in my lifetime, I'm sure that I won't. But I'd like to see some inroads, and this year is the year that if we're going to see some change, I think we need to push for it, okay? And so I encourage you all to take Oath 2021, which is basically a commitment to yourself and to the movement that we're going to redouble our efforts and actually make some tangible changes this year in the struggle for animal liberation. So I've got a lot more uploads coming. I hope you enjoy those. Happy New Year. And so quite fitting for Oath 2021 is one of Barry Horn's rants that I've read before, but I think it's quite a good time to bring it up. And if some people haven't heard the other podcast with this on, I think this is a really good kind of statement by Barry Horn. You can check out who he is in podcast 3. Okay? So, capitalism and animal abuse go hand in hand, and for them there is no profit in life, only death, no fast buck to be made from understanding instead of destroying, no financial killing to be made from peace and compassion when money comes from suffering, pain and war. It would be for us to believe, as some do, that because we care and are right, that we will inevitably win one day. Too easy to simply say that the guilt of murder and suffering is theirs, on their conscience, and that they will one day pay in full. Much too easy to turn away and do nothing. Life is never easy like that. Never easy for those who care about the animals and who know that they have to do something now, not waiting for some distant mythical date. Every day of every month and every year, people turn away from the easy and safe decisions of life and instead take the hard, thankless, barren road to animal liberation. The road with many twists and turns and pitfalls that is direct action for animal liberation. The long road to victory that they know is the only one that can end the suffering and stop the killing. And by the suffering and dedication of the activists who make that decision, the road grows shorter. Victory comes closer, and the animal liberation movement grows stronger, our strength and determination increasing as the animal abusers grow more afraid of our power and resolute belief in victory. And on that note, Oath 2021, take care.